That would have been a big. All right. So welcome everybody back to day 4. As I was saying, for those who were already on the call before I started recording, today we're talking all about, how to move forward with the side hustle. So let me go ahead and share my screen with you guys. And as I was saying, if anybody, you guys know that sometimes you start side hustles, some are more successful than others, and it's easy to get discouraged, like, oh, this will never grow, or this will never be what, I want it to be. But you have to remember that input determines output. What are you putting in? How consistently are you putting that in? If you run into a roadblock, do you stop? You can't stop. You can't give up. It's kind of like I always say, I'm recalculating. Every time I run into a roadblock, it's just like a GPS. Like, all right, I'm recalculating a new route to get to this goal, to accomplish this goal, because what I was doing before, the input that I was doing before, it's not working. Something's disconnecting. And so I'm going to go through the slides, but then I'm going to interject because I just have so much to share on this topic, because, it's when people ask me how I'm successful with side hustling, this is the number one thing that helps me, which is the mindset and how I think about going through these challenges and how I think about recalculating. So first and foremost, we're going to chat today about the common traps that keep us from moving forward. And we're also going to talk about tips to overcome that doubt and that procrastination and push forward with your side hustle. Feel free to drop questions in the chat as I go along. I will be coming back over to the chat. So, let me know if there's anything that I'm not addressing that you want me to address as far as what your roadblock and what your challenge has been. All right. So when it comes to actually moving forward, you have to turn on that switch in your mind. Okay, I'm approaching this week like this is the week I'm getting down to business. So what does that mean? That means you have to trick your mind basically and ignore impulses, our natural urges to put things off or to succumb to that doubt, or even the urge to pick a far off start date. You're not fooling anybody when you're like, all right, I'm going to do this in January. Why? What's so magical about January? February. What's so magical about February? Why not now? Why not October when we're doing this boot camp right now? What is so magical about those dates? You're not fooling me. All right. That is a stall tactic. That is a procrastination tactic. So when the first part of success is really switching that switch on that says, all right, no, this is the week that we're going to make a change and we're going to start treating this like it's real. So that means you have to set what I call urgent deadlines. As soon as you see your brain saying, oh, you know what, that's going to be November's focus, that's going to be December's focus, say, no. You know what I'm going to do next Friday? Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to wake up and do 2 hours of this from this time to this time. Urgent deadlines. Like your deadlines should be within the next 1 to 2 weeks. That's what I mean by urgent deadlines. All right. So keep in mind that you don't have to wait for everything to be perfect to start. You guys know that you don't need certain equipment. You don't need, any kind of perfect website to get started. All you need is yourself being able to speak to what you do and what you can provide and your service, because that is what a client is thinking about first things first. Like, who am I buying from and can I trust them? So get out a notebook and write down your plan. I always say you have to make the plan and then work the plan. So it's not enough to write things down and say, here's what I'm going to do. Then let's work the plan. Let's say, okay, how is this fitting into my life? So then you're going to pick a launch date and you start to work backwards from that launch date. So if you want your products to be on sale 2 weeks before Black Friday, right? Because you don't want the first time you're trying to sell something to be Black Friday, as it's so much noise going on, whether it's a physical product or an online service-based business that you're launching, even a podcast. There's so much noise around some of those big dates. So give yourself a timeline 2-3 weeks before that, and then start preparing and working backwards from that with these urgent deadlines. Do you guys set urgent deadlines? Let me know if you ever, set those kind of deadlines for yourself. I can't say I made up the phrase, but I don't really know who else says that phrase, but that's something. Have you heard of urgent deadlines? Do you set those for yourselves? Do you move forward with that? Shalonda says, no, I need to. Yeah. Okay, so a part of that, I keep bringing this one back up because it is really important. The doing the work piece, not the fake work. Every single time you get ready to do something, really ask yourself, is this fake work? Is this real work or is this fake work? Am I stalling? Am I procrastinating? Am I giving myself an excuse by saying I'm going to do this instead? So sometimes when I'm getting ready to work out, I'll have this urge to look up something online. Like, oh, I meant to look up some more. I meant to order some more workout tights from Amazon. Oh, I meant to do this. Just all this stuff that has nothing to do with actually doing the work. Even in my own business, right? I love to reorganize my to-do list because it makes me feel better, but that is not the work. That's not the work. And you got to allow yourself some time to get those jitters out and do that. Like, okay, I know that for me, when I'm feeling anxious, taking a few minutes to go into my calendar and reorganize what I'm going to focus on and reorganizing my bullets so that I feel like, okay, the day is not overwhelming. I need that for a few minutes. But that's not the actual work of, creating my slides for the boot camp, getting on here with you guys, doing the recaps, all of that. That is the real work. So stop doing the busy work, start doing those impactful tasks that help you to launch your side hustle. And you should know what those are. You can start to write them down, like share some of those in the chat, share an example of busy work, then share an example of what you actually need to be doing, an impactful task. Erin says, I do way too much busy work. We all do. A lot of you guys could benefit from hiring a low-cost VA from something like a Fiverr and having them do some of your busy work and then just focusing on what you need to be doing, which is oftentimes the creative thinking through of what needs to happen in your business, reaching out to vendors to help that happen, putting together the content, outlining, then actually recording the content, right? The real work. Catherine says, I look at designs on Pinterest instead of actually making them. Jasmine says, I allow my mom duties to trump the impactful work for business. Who would dare question that importance? Exactly. Ooh, preach, speak on it. So any fellow moms in the chat can relate. So of course, being a mom is the most important job, right? When it comes versus your work, right? Being a mom and what you have to do for your child and your children is important. However, sometimes we are allowing that to let us procrastinate because we're intimidated by what we have to do. Sometimes checking my email intimidates me. I'm like, oh, I have a big decision to make. I have to get back to these people. I have to respond. I have to think through how I want to phrase this, or even tell my VA, here's some points I want you to hit in the email. And that is causing me to have a mental block. And so I'm going to instead put in a load of laundry or fold of laundry because that's kind of therapeutic and it's calming, but that is not counting. We're not counting the housework in this challenge. We're only counting the real work. All right. So a part of what can help you with the real work is deciding on a schedule. And spoiler alert, schedules are subject to change, and that is okay. I can't tell you how many times my recording days have changed for my podcast. When I was side hustling and coming home and recording after work, it used to be Monday and Tuesday nights from 6 to 8. Now, then it had moved to Tuesdays in the daytime during like the panorama phase. Now I've moved it to Thursdays only in the afternoon because that is what is currently working in my life. So schedules are subject to change, but schedules anchor you in here's when I will do this. And when you know, here's when I will do this, then you can free yourself to schedule fun around that. Okay. So one of the reasons why I like to have my interviews on Thursdays and I like to front load my week with work is so Fridays can feel relaxing. So I am able to schedule fun into my life that way because I know, you know what, this and this is going to happen on these days. And then Fridays, oh, I can make a nail appointment. I can do this, I can do that. Barring, daycare germs don't knock us out and my son is not home from school. But that's just another example of schedules will be subject to change if that happens. But as long as I know on a regular basis, I have these anchor times when things are happening. It helps me to plan and make my life. So if you're telling yourself, oh, I can't make a schedule, my life is too my life is too unpredictable. Excuse me. If you're telling yourself that, that means you haven't tried. Have you tried? Have you tried making your life a little bit more predictable? So one way that you can do that is say, just start with one task. Like, okay, I'm just going to start with my social media development content. And I'm going to spend an hour on Sundays doing that and creating posts and scheduling them out for the week so that I don't have to go into Instagram or TikTok every single day and then be trying to think up my content and wasting time there. Instead, I'm going to do it on Sunday, at least do 3 posts so I don't have to check back in until Wednesday, Thursday. So at least start with one batch task that you need to do and decide on a schedule for that. And remember that these schedules are subject to change. So you guys are saying laundry. Yes, laundry is one of those things that we all need to just kind of downgrade a little bit in our life. Stop giving it so much control in your life. And one thing that I have done, and we might help you too, is I just got some really aesthetically pleasing hampers. And on those weeks that it's too busy for any of us to fold laundry, we just have, we take out the dry clothes and put it in those. And then it's just a part of the decor. All right. Pinterest is taking some of you guys down. Got to set those limits. When you go in, a part of deciding on a schedule means really putting down a firm time frame around that schedule. So that means literally setting the alarm and then making sure that when that alarm goes up, you move on. When it comes to social media, set that alarm. You can even set limits now on your phone, either in your phone itself or on the actual apps, to set those time limits to, trigger you to know, hey, I've spent too much time here. And what have I even been doing? Wasting time. All right, let me move out of here. And Jasmine says, you avoid Pinterest at all costs. And sometimes we have to do that. There are times when I delete these apps from my phone when I know that I really want to be focused this week and I don't want to be distracted. So delete it from your phone or don't go into it at all if that is what it takes. So now let's get back to the mindset piece a little bit. So one of the biggest tips through all of this is just affirming that there is room for you. When it comes to side hustling, I find that some of you guys reach out to me and you are worried that you missed the boat. This was something that was hot and there was a time frame to jump in, and now it's just too competitive. I don't know how I'm going to ever get the results that I see my peers or people who started before me getting. And you have to really speak life over to yourself. You have to speak life over yourself. We talked about in day 1, not diagnosing yourself, right? And saying, oh, I have this syndrome, I have imposter syndrome, I have that syndrome. Well, it also refers to telling yourself that there's room for me. What's for me is for me, and nobody can take that away from me. I specifically remember a lot of times in my life where I was waiting for something to happen and I would see other people getting what I wanted to happen for myself first. And I had to keep telling myself, what's for me is for me. It's okay if they got it first. It's okay if they got that one and I wanted that. What is for me is for me. Same thing for you. You have to tell yourself that. You have to be convicted and absolutely sure of that. So you don't get distracted by jealousy and you don't get distracted by, feeling down about what's happening in someone else's life. Your life is just as good. You are going to get what's yours and it is for you. What's for you is for you. So right now at this very moment, the world is making room for you and your business idea. You're in this boot camp for a reason. At this very moment, the world is making room for you. It's clearing space. Your idea is going to come and it's going to take it by storm because no one has ever, ever, ever seen your idea done quite like the way that you're about to do it. So I wasn't the first person out there to have a podcast about side hustling, but I knew that I wanted to hear a specific type of stories from a specific type of side hustler and entrepreneur. And I didn't see it out there. And I said to myself, you know what? I need to start this. So that is how that happened for me. So same thing will happen for you. Like no one has seen it quite the way that you're about to do it. I'm interested to know how you guys feel about, let me go back to this for a second, because I want to talk about this more for a second. I'm interested to know how many of you suffer from, I don't want to say suffer because none of us have syndromes here, okay? We're not diagnosing ourselves with that, but how many of us at times see something and say, you know what, it's full, it's crowded, or so-and-so is already doing that, I can't do that, and so forth. Jasmine, you raised your hand. All right. Crystal, you raised your hand. Yes. This is, and I know it comes up a lot with podcasters. It comes up a lot with podcasters, especially. And I'm here to tell you that there's someone who not only needs to hear your message, but like I've been saying all week, they need to hear it from you. They need to hear it from you. Like the package that you'll put it in is going to resonate with them better than it coming from someone else's mouth. And that's just how life works. Sometimes you just need to hear it from a certain person. So when you start feeling those feelings, the one thing that helps me is to lean into those feelings of vulnerability, meaning acknowledge it, acknowledge it. And you could even try sharing it with your audience if that helps you. Of course, I don't mean like, come on here and be sad and crying and all of that. All I mean is you can share the ups and downs of your process, and you'll actually be more impactful when you're true to yourself and you do things like that. So we are living in an age where it is okay to show your audience or consumers the process behind the product and behind the person and behind the brand. So embrace that and don't think of it as you showing your weakness or you allowing competitors to have a competitive advantage over you. It is a connection tool. And I use the word tool because of the fact that with you being vulnerable, again, you're showing people that you're human, you're another person, you're not just a page on Instagram, you're an actual human behind that brand. I know that sometimes I'll post something, and if it does really, really well, and it starts reaching people who haven't come across Side Hustle Pro before, I will notice that people will be commenting in the comments as if I'm not a real person, like as if I don't actually read this and respond back. They'll start to like say, oh, talk to their friends within the comments. It's hard to explain, but I think you know what I mean. Like if you go onto an Essence or a Shade Room or something like that, how people just are talking in there because it's an entity. It's not a real person to them, right? It's not one person behind that brand, but it's me behind Side Hustle Pro. And so I'm like, hey, I'm here. I can read this. I know what you're saying, but you'll be more impactful when you continue to remind people that like, hey, I'm a person, I'm building this out. I have vulnerabilities too. I follow, one of my interviews was with Nicailamatthewsokome, and she has a brand, Dressed in Joy. And she's been sharing how she's been having some banking issues and some spam and fraud issues. And it just makes you see, when you see someone post that they have a new product on sale, it makes you realize how much it takes for them to go from designing, because she has an athleisure apparel brand, to go from designing to actually having inventory and then having it shipped out to you. It really makes you respect and understand the journey and the sacrifice that people go through to create some of your most beloved brands. And you can do that as well. And it's a way to really get those diehard fans. Mia Ray of Glamaholic is another great example of that. Consistently showing vulnerability, consistently showing true authenticity, and showing you the journey behind that. If you haven't heard of her, go to, at Mia Ray, MIARAY on Instagram, and you will see what I mean by this. So now let's move into this is bigger than you. Okay. So I think that, no, not only think, I know that when we get so caught up in our heads about all the things that are wrong and all the things that could prevent us from starting something, and oh, I haven't done this because of XYZ, and oh, I can't do that yet because I need XYZ. We're forgetting that this is bigger than us. Okay, this is bigger than you. someone is waiting for you. Someone is waiting for this content. Someone's waiting for your product, and they do not care what your excuse is. They don't care if so-and-so happened, or, you lost track of time, or you were just too intimidated this week to get it out there. No one is thinking about that. They want you to give them what they need, go ahead and create it and make it. All right. And when I think about, some of the services you guys want to provide, like professional development services for at-risk youth, like they need you. They don't care if your templates are beautifully designed via Canva and you got a web designer to make all of the handouts beautiful, or that your logo is a certain color. They don't care about that. They need the skills that you're going to foster in them that are going to help them get off that track, and that are going to help them get on a track where they can be successful in life, where they can earn money in a positive way in life. And when you think about that, and you always keep that in the back of your mind, that keeps you pushing forward. That keeps you moving forward. So, I want to pause for a second and just tap in with you guys, and let me know if you're following along. Let me know what thoughts are coming to mind as I'm talking about this, because I really hope that you guys get just how much you need to push through the mental garbage in order to be successful. So again, that is the key thing that separates those who are successful with their side hustling. It is pushing through the mental garbage. So Lion Flood says right there with you. Okay, good. I'm glad that this is resonating, and start to think through what mental garbage you have and how you're going to push through this. Like, what's really going on? Michelle says, I'm full of mental garbage. We all are. Our minds, they really play tricks on us. Our minds are can be our biggest enemy sometimes. And we just have to have these talks with ourselves, literally look in the mirror and say, I know that you think XYZ, but no, I'm going to choose different thoughts, right? It's that thought work that we talked about in day one, that's a phrase that a lot of life coaches use, that I first learned via Rachel Rogers. But thought work, okay, is everything that I'm talking about here. More examples of how we need thought work in our life to shift our minds, okay? How we need to be very, very in control of our mindset in order to really, really succeed at side hustling. And one of the ways that I also do this, I just mentioned one of my virtual mentors is, so I love to get a virtual mentor. And I know typically when you think of the concept of mentor, you think that you need to email someone or reach out to someone in your workplace or in your network and say, hey, I would love to be your mentee. I'm so impressed and I admire all that you've done in XYZ space. Could you be my mentor? And that just puts so much pressure on someone. Like, that means now they got to find time to talk to you and meet with you. You are now a burden, even if you're not trying to be. You get what I mean? Like, you're now something else they need to do. And you're now a new responsibility, something they need to handle and make sure they're doing well. Because who wants to be a bad mentor? So no, it's up to you, the mentee, to exhaust all you can do virtually via the information they've put out there online before you ever reach out to someone for more, because there's so much you can get. So I talked about Rachel Rogers. Like, if someone has a book, read their book. They're giving you the first wave of information that you need to act on before you ever reach out for more. I have a podcast. You want my virtual mentorship? I have a podcast. I have social media platforms. I even have courses, for when you're ready to go to the next level with me. So all of that is what I mean. So for me, when I was starting my YouTube channel, for example, I identified people who I call my YouTube girls, who I would study. I studied how they do their content. I studied their growth. I studied what I think, worked and what didn't work about their filming and storytelling techniques. All of these ways are ways that I was able to get virtual mentorship without having to reach out and say, hey, teach me how to do YouTube. Hey, teach me how to be successful here. And if they had a course or something, a short guide that they were selling, I would purchase that because I want to know as much as possible. So my hack in life has always been virtual mentorship. When I came back from grad school in 2015, and I was like, all right, I know a lot about business. I know a lot about entrepreneurship. Well, I didn't know a lot about entrepreneurship, but I knew a lot about business, had my business degree, but I don't know enough about building my personal brand. This is this new world that I need to really tap into. So let me go and learn from the people who can tell me a little bit more about this world. So that's when I started to get virtual mentors, and I would listen to their podcasts, buy their courses, start to understand how to translate what I know into a blog, how to translate what I know into a website and on social media, so people can recognize what it is I offer and bring to the table and start to associate that with my name, AKA my personal brand. So virtual mentorship is really, really important. I'm tapping into the chat right now. Let me see what the comments are. So Shalonda, you said you need to set a more realistic schedule. You create 10 to 15 items to-do list for the week, then get frustrated. Okay, we can talk a little bit about setting a realistic schedule before we go today. Just remind me if we don't get to it. Clarissa said, that's real, the need to crush your ego and be more outwardly focused on what you can contribute rather than focusing on how others perceive you. Yes, that's a big key as well in the mental garbage. A lot of the mental garbage is stimulated by caring too much about what other people think. What does it look like to other people is where we get lost. What does so-and-so think about what I'm doing? And why does that matter? What gives them so much importance in your life that their opinion should matter more than your own is what we really need to ask ourselves. Why does their opinion matter more than my own? How crazy is that if anyone outside of you, if you value their opinion more than your own? Lion Fudd said, yeah, my mind is playing tricks on me. So now let's talk about moving forward again. So we're going to just do the basics, you guys. We are going to just do the basics. When we're starting our side hustle, we are starting with all we need, the very bare minimum resources and materials that we need to move forward. So when I started my podcast, I had a $25 mic, my laptop, which I already had. I recorded via, Skype and Ecamm. I think Ecamm, it's a call recorder. So I would do a call via Skype, which was free. And then, purchase like a very, very inexpensive software to record those calls. And that was how Side Hustle Pro podcast started. That is all I needed, right? Think about what are the basic things that you need to get your business started. I've had women on the show who, I remember one of the people who created a body butter line. She literally went to the Chinese store in her neighborhood and asked them for some of their plastic soup containers. And that is what she shipped her first batch of body butters in. She said, okay, what's the basics that I need? I need a container, I need some labels, and I need to figure out some packaging that will preserve the consistency of these butters. And that's the first layer of creating the actual product. And then, of course, it's letting people know it's on sale and providing them with a way to purchase. So stop trying to do the most when you first launch. There's levels to this. Angel of the Spice Suite talked about in her episode that she, for a long time, just had brown paper bags. When people came to shop in the Spice Suite in DC, brown paper bags are what their spices were put in. No label, no Spice Suite labeling, none of that. What you see today when you go on her Instagram page is years in the making. Why? Because what do people want? They want the spices. What does she need to give them? The spices in a bottle in a way that they can transport it back to their house. Do they need a special bag? No, because what are they going to do with the bag? They're going to throw it away anyway, right? So focus on the basics that people need. Let me know, what are some of the basics that you need for your side hustle so we know what we're focusing on this week, okay? Michelle says, they say if you're not ashamed of your first efforts, then you waited too long to start. Yep, that's a common refrain that you hear if you read books like The Lean Startup, right? If you waited too long, that's when you'll be super proud of your first, what they call it, MVP, minimum viable product, right? If you are super proud with your first website, you waited too long. You waited too long. You probably spent too much on something that's not proven, because the last thing you want to do is spend too much and then have your customers say, hey, actually, I love that you've put it in this pretty glass bottle, but actually this broke in the mail when it was coming to me, or, this keeps falling off my shelf. This is a hazard for my kids. So can you put it in plastic, right? Like, you do not want to end up there. You want to test it out with the basics, get the feedback, and then upgrade. And the best part of that is you now have money to upgrade because you sold the basics, you got some more revenue in to invest back into your business. Michelle says, my first podcast logo was atrocious, but I was out there. That's what we need to do. We need to get out there. We can fix logos. We can fix branding. We can fix all of that. Growth is growth. Yes, says Alexis. Keshna, I actually have everything I need to create products for my side hustle. Okay. All right. So you know what the next step is, right? Jasmine says, basics, a space to teach that has paper, pens, printer, and internet computer access. Love it. Love it. And is it possible to do the training virtually at all, or do you always want to deliver it live, Jasmine? Aisha says, I've revamped my podcast 3 times. Yes, she has in the past year. Alexis says, my business IG is looking rough right now, but I'm still posting, boo. All right, that's it. I go through so many phases with my Side Hustle Pro social media pages, and I leave it all up there for people to see. Like, hey, this was when I was in my gold, white, and black phase. All right, moved out of that. Now we have a new look and feel and aesthetic for Side Hustle Pro, so you'll see more of those integrated. But sometimes I don't feel like doing all that. Sometimes, I saw a quote, I loved it, I didn't feel like putting it in some special template, like here it is, or I recorded this video. I only have so many text options via the Reels app, so here's what it looks like. None of that matters to most people. Are not even coming to your feed anymore. Like, they're coming across your content just as they're scrolling or just from someone's story. So you trying to make this feed look perfectly aesthetically pleasing. It's like, for who? For the small percentage of people who ever actually tap into your entire feed? No, we're not doing that. We're focusing on creating impactful content, and we're focusing on the impactful work only. Okay. Jasmine, you say, I am slightly intimidated by the virtual space and teaching techniques as well. I guess everything intimidates me. Okay, well, if you have to start with what will make you comfortable. So I just asked that, but if virtual is going to be too much and too clunky and you feel like your audience might get distracted anyway, then let's focus on in person. Keshna says, I waste my time on Pinterest, following others and watching what they're doing, wasting hours. Just need to take the fear out of it and just do it. You're absolutely right. So again, guys, remind me to get into a little bit about my side hustle scheduling before we jump off today, because I think that'll be helpful for you too. Okay, so the last thing, this is the last thing I'll touch on before we get into a little bit more about your side hustle scheduling, is limit the opinions. Okay, you do not need anyone's permission to launch your side hustle. If you're waiting to share your idea with someone and then have them say, oh, that's a great idea, oh, that's bomb, girl, do that, you need to launch that right now, you'll be waiting forever. You'll be waiting forever because you're the only one with the vision. Even after you launch, limit the opinions. As soon as you launch something, as soon as you put something out there, here comes the peanut gallery with all their opinions, like, oh, you should. Everybody loves to come with the you shoulds. None of them are qualified. The only person who is qualified to speak on your business is you, someone else who has done a similar business who may be able to help you to get to where they are, and your target customer. Okay, that is it. And I don't want you to get this confused with, when you're starting out and I told you to do, and I walked you through how to figure out who your target audience is, and then from there, who your ideal client is. Don't get that confused with that exercise, because that exercise, we're going after a specific person to understand the market, and then understand within that the target market, and then understand within that the ideal client. We're trying to work through the people who are most likely to engage with our product or content, and then understand how to speak to them, because they're more likely to receive the message and take action. So that is target market research. Okay. This right here, I'm talking about opinions on your business and what you should be doing. After I launched the Side Hustle Pro podcast, I had people, even people I'm close to in my family, say, "Oh, congrats, this is so great. Have you considered, the episodes are so long, or, this." And it's like, these are people who aren't even regular podcast listeners. So how can someone who doesn't listen to podcasts give you input on the podcast space? They wouldn't understand that, hey, the average person, my ideal listener, when they're listening to podcasts, they put on a podcast before they do something, and they want that podcast to keep them company. So they're okay with the length of it. I've spoken to my ideal client. I know this. This person giving you an opinion doesn't know this. So that's why it's so important to know who your ideal client is and prioritize them and get the feedback from them. All right. And then the other piece of this is, again, that permission piece. Whenever you're seeking others' opinions, what you're actually seeking is their permission. You are seeking some kind of approval or validation that you're on the right track, that what you're doing, that it's a good idea. And you absolutely don't need that. If you are to go after this side hustle and through doing this, find that, hey, you know what? I don't love this. This is actually not a great idea. The market is not what I thought it was. I'm not going to be able to monetize this in a way I thought I could, or it's not clear enough. I need to make some changes. That's okay. It's okay that you do that and you find that out, because that's making you better for your next side hustle or the next version of this side hustle. What's not okay is if you let someone talk you out of doing something and they're not even in the same space. We need to focus on doing, okay? And we're not talking or getting opinions from people who are not doers, because they don't get it. A lot of people feel like they have authority to just speak on business and business ownership. They don't have a degree in business. They've never ran a business, but then they want to speak on it. Another analogy I like to give is the LeBron analogy. So, do you think that LeBron goes home after a game and pulls up Twitter and says, let me look up what these folks on Twitter had to say. They might have some good advice about my game and what I did right and wrong. Is he going to get the advice from people who haven't ever played basketball at his level, just aren't good, and say, oh yeah, this is who I need to get advice from? No. He's going to watch his game tape. He's going to get, guidance from trusted other expert basketball players and coaches. And he's going to work with his team to improve their chances of winning a championship, because that's who matters. That's who can speak on his game and the overall game for the team. We're not going to the Twitter, to the Twitter peanut gallery, and neither should you. That's how you should think about it. You are LeBron, you are Beyonce, you are everybody performing and going to perform at an excellent level. And you are only going to consult experts, and you're only going to consult your audience. You are not, and even with quote unquote experts, you are going to value your opinion more than an external opinion. You are going to hold yourself to that standard and say, I know the vision I was given, and I know what I need to do to implement it. I know what I see for myself. And so I'm going to go after that. Jasmine says, I was once reminded that those who intimidate me wake up in the morning with messy hair and smelly breath too. They use the bathroom just like I do. I do my things way better than them. They do their things better than me. That's totally fine. That is absolutely the truth. That's what we're getting at here. Like, there's nothing that makes anybody else more of an expert on your business than you. So I want you to remember through all this that getting started is the goal. I walk you through this mental mindset work because the goal is to get started. The goal is to get started through all of this. I want you to start, and I want you to keep going. And if you have started, I want you to push past this current plateau that you're in and get started, get into that next peak. Okay. Because there will be plateaus, there will be peaks and valleys in this whole journey. There will be seasons of growth. Like, there will be seasons of planting, and then there will be season of reaping the benefits of what you've sown and planted. And it's up to you to recognize that and keep going and understand that this is all part of the process. A lot of times people talk about, you think there's this like straight line to the top arc that people have, when it's actually more of like a up and down, because that's true. That's life. That really is how it goes. So before we get into the homework for tonight, and sorry again about the replay going out late yesterday, this one will come out as soon as soon as it downloads, and I'll send it out. But so a lot of you guys, you struggle with kind of fitting it into your life. And what has really worked for me is, again, always having that mindset that schedules are subject to change. And also, schedules are subject to change, and recalculation can occur. So if one route doesn't work, I'm going to recalculate. So a lot of times when I find myself looking at a task and I keep pushing it out. I just keep breaking it down smaller and smaller and smaller. I say to myself, what is it about this particular task that is so daunting to me that I keep pushing it off? What have I made this task into that is so daunting? So an example could be, if I'm like, I want to do a boot camp, and I'm going to, create, I'm going to make it a 5-day challenge, and I'm going to, have videos each day. I'm going to have all this, XYZ, blah, blah, blah. And then I'm like, so I just need to go and create that all next week. And on Monday, I'm going to do all the slides for that. And I find myself procrastinating, right? Why? Because I've put too much on one day. I've put too much onto, I've given myself too daunting of a task to accomplish in a short period of time or all at once. So why don't I break that down? Why don't I say, hey, I will work on this piece of the presentation this day. I'll work on that piece the next day. And as I find that, hey, I can take on more without feeling like it's daunting, then I do more. Similarly, when I'm creating a course, I focus on one module at a time, and I go through and I organize my thoughts, and then I outline what I want to say, and then I record that. And so that's how you need to break out your calendar as well. In addition to that, make sure you're batching. If you try to batch tasks, even on different days, that you'll find your mind starts to play tricks on you again. So focus on sticking to certain dates for certain tasks for a while before you try to switch it up. So if your body is programmed, after a while, your body actually knows, like, hey, Thursdays are my day to do this. And it kind of gets into that zone. It kind of feels that even from the moment you wake up, like, today's recording day, I'm going to be on in a different way than I am on Mondays. When I know Mondays, I'm just trying to get my life together. There ain't no way I want to get on any kind of camera with anybody, right? Because your mind is not programmed for that. Your body doesn't feel that inside of itself on those days, because you've always done batching on another day. So those are some of the tips that I want to share with you there. So make sure that you are looking at your tasks and breaking them down as small and as breaking them down into as many pieces as you need to, reminding yourself that schedules are subject to change, and reminding yourself that recalculation happens and it's okay. And then batch process those tasks. Do certain tasks on certain days only. So your body starts to get into that rhythm, and you're more likely to get it done. And it also feels like, oh, it's Tuesday. Okay, today I only have to focus on this. And then that overwhelm doesn't hit you the same way, because it's like, yes, I need to get back to those emails. You can even batch process emails and say, all right, Wednesdays are my day to tackle email. It's okay if people don't get a response back in the same hour. Say, my inbox overwhelms me. Wednesdays and Fridays are my day to really tackle that. Every other day, I don't have to worry about that. I just have to focus on doing this today. My inbox is tomorrow. And then when you know that it's your inbox day, it's like, okay, the only thing I have to focus on today is the inbox. Now, I'm not saying you don't have anything else going on in your life. I certainly have other things going on in my life, but work-wise, I know, okay, I'm going to set aside XYZ hours to only do that. I only have to worry about that today so I can get back to all the other stuff going on in my life, childcare, laundry, cooking, groceries, all that stuff, right? You can use up your time more wisely. All right, let's jump back into the chat. I'm going to, and now let me quickly share with you guys the homework, and I'll be, of course, sending this out via email next. But I want you to take the following actions today. Again, I'm very realistic in what I'm asking you to do. These are very, very achievable tasks. So make sure that you are doing these homework assignments. All right. So number one, create your side hustle schedule, meaning your batch processing schedule. Decide what you'll do on each day and then add that to your calendar. So, all right, this day I'm going to do social media content creation. This day I'm going to do my inbox. This day I'm going to make batches of the product, or this day I'm going to outline a new module for my course or my content or my next podcast interview. This day I'm going to reach out to guests. This day I'm going to reach out to potential sponsors, all of those things. Okay. Create your side hustle schedule and add it to your calendar. Number two, set urgent deadlines for the next 3 action items in your business. So you know what the next 3 action items are in your business. Set urgent deadlines for those. Stop pushing them off. If you need to pitch 3 organizations to bring your workshop to, pitch those organizations this week. Okay. The week is still young. It's only Thursday. And then the third item, I want you guys to post your side hustle schedule in the Facebook group. So you can just write out, Monday through Friday, this is my schedule for my side hustle. Mondays, I do this. Tuesdays, I do that. So you can screenshot your calendar if you'd like, or you can just post your actual schedule, Monday : and what you'll be doing each day. All right. So that is the homework for today. All right. So I'm going to stop sharing. I'll see you guys in day 5. I'm going to stop sharing for a bit and head back over to the chat. And let me know before we go if you guys have any last questions on today's today's lesson and homework. Now is your time if you want to raise your hand to quickly ask for any clarification. And go. No questions, just a sponge. All right. Well, it's good to know. Thank you for telling me that, because sometimes I'm like, how are you guys receiving this? Are you learning? Erin said, needed these tips and reminders. Great. Keshna says, does MailChimp create websites when you sign up? So MailChimp, you can create what are called landing pages. To my knowledge, I haven't used MailChimp in a few years now, actually several years now. They create landing pages. So a landing page is, remember when you signed up for this boot camp and you went to a page and you entered in your email, your name and email, that's what's called a landing page. It's not a fully built out website with multiple pages. It's just something that you put up to most times to build your email list. So yes, you can build that. If you want to quickly start a coming soon page, you can do that with MailChimp or any email service provider. If people, if you link to that in your Instagram or social media bios, for if you tell people, oh, something's coming soon, sign up to be notified when we launch, that you can absolutely create in MailChimp and ConvertKit, any email service provider. Catherine says, Jasmine says, what can I do to hold myself more accountable to meet these deadlines? Tools, apps, maybe. So you raise an important point, right? So everybody, we can set these deadlines, and because schedules are subject to change, we might miss those deadlines. And the biggest thing you can do is, like I was saying, like, remember that's part of the process. That as you are doing that, be real with yourself and say, what I'm doing right now is part of the process. What I'm facing right now is it's me against me. I'm not holding myself to these deadlines because there's something inside of me that still feels daunted or intimidated or overwhelmed about this whole thing. So check in with yourself and then ask yourself, what is it about the deadline that made me so daunted that I didn't meet it? I still don't meet deadlines sometimes because of that. So when I check in with myself, I realize, oh, it's because of XYZ. All right, okay, how can I fix XYZ? So that's why I gave you the example of like something that might realistically happen with me. I love to share my knowledge. I get overwhelmed by how to distill all the information I have in my head into into a module or into a slide or anything like that. So then I have these conversations with myself so that I can then break it down into pieces that make it more manageable. All right. So that's what you have to do. You have to do that work to really understand what is it about what the deadline is, whatever you put as the deadline, the actual task that you had a deadline for, and that task probably needs to be broken down a little bit more or shifted a bit. And the pressure that you put on the task needs to change as well, because sometimes we put these we just hold these tasks up as being so important, and they're really not. Like the first landing page you put up probably won't do that well. The first time you tell somebody to sign up for your class, they probably will ignore it. You have to keep telling them. So take the pressure off the actual thing anyway, because it's not going to do good, right? Like if you tell yourself that everything is practice, everything is a test. That's a common refrain. I think it's from Pele, a soccer player or something like that. My husband and I always say to ourselves, like, everything is practice. So instead of being like, oh, I'm putting this out there and it needs to make me this amount of money, I say to myself, okay, this is practice. This is teaching me to be a better instructor. This is teaching me to work on how to take information from my brain and distill it down and educate others. This is practice. This is learning. I'm getting better, and the money will come. Remember, our side hustles, they don't start making us money right away. We have to grow as side hustlers. That's why it's important to start, because if you don't start, you can't grow and get better. Catherine says, I had a side hustle before and it went bust because I didn't know any of this stuff. Not this time. Yes. I'm so glad to hear that. And by stuff, what do you mean? What specifically did you not know before that you know now? Candy says, this class has been very beneficial to starting my podcast and focusing on what needs to be done and get out of my head. Yes. Oh, and you guys, so what I've decided to do is day 5 of the boot camp will be side hustle specific. And even if you don't, it will be podcast specific. Even if you don't have a podcast, this will still be applicable to many of you. But because we have so many podcasters and because you guys don't have 2 hours for an additional breakout, that's what we're going to do. We're going to have a podcast specific session tomorrow, because most of the stuff that would have been covered tomorrow, we actually touched on today. So that is for all my podcasters. I'll remind you again via email, but that's what's going to happen. All right. Manageable goals. Yes, that's the goal, you guys. And not this time. We're not going bust with the side hustle. Catherine says, I love manageable, or Sherilyn says, I love manageable goals and focusing on the first next step. Yep. Until you try, you don't know what you can't do. Henry James. Yep. That's what it is. All right, you guys. So with that, we're going to wrap up for today. Have a great rest of your afternoon. Make sure you join. Make sure you tell all your fellow Side Hustle boot campers. Tomorrow, we're going deep on podcasting. I can't wait to talk. Send me your questions. Drop them in the Facebook group so that I can make sure I touch on as many as possible. I'll actually put a post in the group to make sure that I focus on as many as possible. All right. And with that, see you tomorrow.